the CEO, Stockton Rush, says, at some point, safety just is pure waste. I mean, if you just want to be safe, don't get out of bed. Don't get in your car. Don't do anything. Again, that's from the OceanGate CEO, Stockton Rush, who is a passenger of the missing submersible that has gone to the Titanic wreck. Welcome to Alien and the Jester. This is Abs, and I am with John. John, how are you?
I'm good.
Yeah,
I'm safe.
you're safe. Yeah, let's mark ourselves
Actually,
safe,
I'm
right?
unsafe because I'm not in bed right now.
Ah, yes, yes. This quote. We will get much more into it. Yes, as we're alluding, we're going to cover the ongoing situation of the missing submersible that has gone to see the wreck of the Titanic with 5 passengers on board. This is a developing situation, as you know, as everyone probably in the world knows right now. The time is ticking from the recording of this episode. Right now, we're recording approximately 10 p.m. Eastern Time. There's about 7 hours of oxygen left from the original approximation. In my opinion, there's probably less time, but we'll get more into that. But before we dive in, no pun intended, uh, I just want to give an apology to the. I feel like I apologize to the viewers all the time. We haven't uploaded, in a minute. We have recorded episodes, but I just don't think they're up to our. I think we've set some of our bar higher for our recent episodes. We want to do a lot more research for you guys. We want to, we're gonna have sources for this episodes. We're gonna include it in the show notes because I think we're at that point where I think we're producing well. I think we've learned a lot of the tricks and trades of podcasting. But I don't know about you, John. I don't want to. I want this to be a neutral but verified information podcast. So that sometimes does take time. It takes time to edit, takes time to research, but we want to get you guys the best of the best information and also keep it entertaining.
I'm just here for the AdSense money.
Well, of what as? Were you getting money? In all seriousness, thank you for if you're listening, and we do it for you guys. We literally do it for you guys.
Yeah, love you guys.
Love you guys, seriously. Okay, no more BS. I think it's time to get into the
Love you, guy.
love you guy. Yeah, probably one person. You know who you are. You know who you
Yeah, you
are.
know who you are. We
Yeah.
thank you.
Actually, following our last couple of episodes, we did get a lot of feedback, both positives and I don't want to say negative, but constructive criticisms, and like just good, great feedback. We're taking, I think, 99% of them, and applying it. Honestly, we're trying to sound better. We're trying to be more informative, be more concise, but also entertaining, including some of our banters between John and I. That's one of the just like probably a good chunk of comment that people like the interactions between us.
Yeah, I think when we're at our best, it feels like we're right in your room with you.
Yeah.
And if we can do even better, it'll even feel like we're touching you.
All right. That's the Jester. He jokes. Haha. Haha. Anyway, so today's episode, we're gonna dive into the current ongoing situation of the submersible that is missing at the moment. Search and rescue is still ongoing. The current situation is a little bit bleak. I think we mentioned that there's only a few hours of oxygen left, and this really, the sub went missing last Sunday, so they began 4 days ago. I just want to, while researching this, I did get a little impassioned. I'm not going to lie. So I'm be trying to give information more neutrally if possible. But the more I dug into, there's so much information now being brought up, especially on the history side. the history of the company, and it is who it's very enraging. So my background is I have education as a mechanical engineer. My work, without going into too much detail, I want to stay anonymous. I work with safety of pressure vessels in general, and this vessel itself, this submersible, is a pressure vessel. And one of the biggest things that's hammered into any engineering student or worker is is the safety of what we do. We, all of us, and John is an engineer himself, we work with problem solving, and oftentimes that goes into safety and people's lives. For a lot of people, and I'm not in this discussion, for a lot of people, it's a thankless job. You never really see the benefit of it because you don't hear about things that don't go wrong. You hear about things that do go wrong, where safety was, you cut corners on safety. And that's just sort of a little preview of what we're going to find in this episode. It really hit a personal nerve for me as I was researching, as I was getting deeper into the lead up to this dive, and honestly, it shouldn't have happened at all. But anyway, without getting too far ahead, John, what do you know? Do you know what anything about this situation? What do you think? What do you think is happening?
Well, I feel like this is one of the most interesting news stories I've
Yeah,
heard in like the past few months at least. Like this is like a movie playing in real time, essentially.
I think it will be a Netflix movie, either a documentary or a real, a reenactment or something in Netflix in like the next 6 months. I am sure there's so much going on. There's like rich billionaires involved. There's the Titanic wreck, obviously. There's a little bit of a meme culture that also sprouted up. Some funny stuff we'll kind of go over. But if you don't mind, I'll start with the
Yeah,
sort of
for sure.
the mission details. Let's start from really the outset of this particular mission. There's 5 people on the crew, one pilot, one guide, and 3 tourists. There's a CEO who's also piloting this vessel, Stockton Rush. That's remember that name. He's an aerospace engineer. He is the founder and CEO of OceanGate, the company that produced Titan, the submersible that is now missing. And OceanGate has also done other dives in general, especially on shipwrecks, not just the Titanic. And they really started doing these tourist trips in 2016, and on for the Titanic, it was really around 2021. I think it was July 2021. The other passengers include a British billionaire adventurer named Hamish Harding. He's been sort of kind of a person of interest in a lot of conspiratorial circles because he has gone to the South Pole. He's, I think, dove into the Mariana Trench. He's flown in Blue Origin with Jeff Bezos. He has a lot of
Wow.
lots of connection. This is sort of, I'm not sure if this is his first dive to the Titanic. I'm not sure if I found that, but Mariana's Trench, I mean, that's a much deeper than the Titanic. And the third passenger is someone, I might be butchering their name, Paul Henri Nargolet. I'm definitely butchering that name. He was a former French commander, and he's also a search expert and a Titanic wreck expert as well. He's completed 35 dives to Titanic. Out of all these people, this person is the most surprising to me that went on board. I'll kind of go over what I mean by that, but it just he's experienced. He's 77 years old. He's a former Navy commander. He's dove 35 times, and given the situation of the lack of some of the safety standards being met, I'm surprised he even got into this vessel. The other folks, the CEO is going to back his own thing. The British adventurer, he likes the adrenaline. I get that, but yeah, this Paul Henry really surprised me, and the two others are Miss Shahjala Dawood. He's a Pakistani British businessman. He leads one of the largest conglomerates in Pakistan, and his 19-year-old son. And I feel the most bad about the son being involved because he's 19. Stockton Rush is 61. I'm not saying old people like deserve to die more or anything, but I just think you're the son of a passenger. You're only 19. You just probably have the least amount of sort of insight or care into looking into what's going on, right? Your dad should have really known better. And by the way, these passengers have to sign away their, there's a waiver that you sign before you get into this vessel that it is unapproved, that you know that is unapproved, you know that is uncertified, you know that it's an experimental vessel, and that it could result in injury, trauma, or death. The second part is not what's concerning. That the fact that it's unapproved and it's uncertified and it's an experimental vessel going 4,000 meters into the ocean. John, are you gonna sign that and go inside this rinky dink vessel?
If I was like 77, I probably would.
Fair enough.
I
Fair
feel
enough.
so. The funny thing is, I bet the son probably didn't even want to go, but it's like that thing where the dad is like, "All right, come on,
Mm,
like come with me," and the son's like, "All right, fine, dad, I'll go like run this like errand with you."
I don't
And
think it's
next
just an
thing you know,
no, no,
you're
no way. It's a 8 day excursion. I mean, the whole expedition is 8 day. I don't think you just say, "All right, I guess I'll go to the grocery store with you," type of thing. Each seat costs $250,000. Make the company's making a million just from this trip with 4 passengers,
hmm
approximately. The actual descent takes approximately 2 hours to get to the wreck. It's about 7 hours to surface. So basically, they expected the submersible to surface 7 hours after it started the descent. A previous trip, it had similar numbers. They had 2 hours to go down, and then I think they spent about 20 minutes looking at the wreck before coming up. This is, listen, the pressure at this depth is 6,000 psi, and psi stands for pounds per square inch. So I want you and any viewers, if you don't really understand what this, and it's tough to really visualize it, take one of your fingers and just press on your palm or any part of your body, right? That's that's about a square inch, and you can push as hard as you can, right? And that's however many pounds you're pushing per that square inch. At that depth, 6,000 pounds are pressing into every square inch of a surface. Every square inch of that vessel is being pressed by 6,000 pounds, and that's about 3 tons. Imagine a whole SUV, a large SUV, pressing onto every square inch of your body down there, and this is a vessel that's this is the pressure that it's dealing with. And I think a lot of people also understand what a pressure vessel is. It's really not that difficult to imagine. I'm sure everyone sort of uses one every day. If you ever use a pressure cooker, it's has internal pressure that it builds up for cooking. Just think of the submersible as an opposite of that, where it's built to withstand pressure from the outside. So so if you can imagine, a pressure cooker has safety built into it so it doesn't explode because it has internal pressure. A submersible is built so it doesn't implode because it has external pressure going into it. And because of that safety, it's sealed shut as it starts its descent. So you can imagine you can't just have a door that you can just swing on a hinge, anything like
mm.
that. You need to have it completely sealed shut, and you can understand that that hampers a lot of rescue attempts. even if you reach it. And anyway, we'll talk about possible scenarios.
So to withstand that kind of pressure, you
Yeah.
probably need extremely specialized like vehicle.
Yes. Oh yeah. So I mean, listen, to the dive itself, someone said it. I don't remember who exactly gave this quote, but someone said there's been more people in outer space than there have been people at this depth of the ocean, and that
Mm,
it makes a lot of sense when you think about it. For these vessels have to be built to a great amount of safety standards. Well, they're supposed to be. This particular submersible was not certified. We'll get into that. There are safety standards, very robust safety standards for these vessels to operate, essentially, because these are just extraordinary amount of pressure that you're dealing with. If you've ever watched the video of James Cameron diving into the Marianas Trench, I believe, or even the ones any dive to the Titanic wreck, you'll see these things are essentially cylindrical tubes, but way more robust. They're safety tested. They're I think tested for fatigue. There's something called cyclic fatigue testing. That's just one of the testing that it goes through. There are testing that involves finding the weak points. You can imagine you can't just make a sort of a rectangular piece of a vessel and just put it underwater, because it has weak points on the edges, on the corners rather. So you kind of have sort of a cylindrical with the rounded ends. And this particular submersible was shaped like a teardrop. It was 22 feet wide, 9 feet. Excuse me, 22 feet long, 9 feet wide, 8 feet high. It's if you want to imagine a minivan, a sort
yeah.
of 22 feet long minivan, and its maximum capacity is 5 people. It has a bathroom, sort of like a toilet. Really, it's not a bathroom, and that toilet faces the only one window that it has. You can also imagine. Look, listen, you can't have multiple windows in a vessel like this. In fact, you can only really put the window in certain places without making the vessel weak, because those points where you put in the acrylic window
Hmm.
can be a weak points. Now, I don't know the entire specification, so we don't know if it met any safety standards. We don't know anything about weak points or any bottlenecks that the vessel might have had. I think that is to be determined later on. I think people are more focused on the rescue, but I'm sure there will be some sort of an inquest, some sort of. I hope there is an inquest or investigation on the vessel itself, how it's made, and if if the way it's made any impact on the safety of this dive. And listen, I want to give some credit because it has made the dive to the voyage before and has come up, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it was safe, right? You can do something and be successful at that mission, but that doesn't mean that it met any safety standards.
Just because you skydive and and you survive even without parachute one time
Mm.
doesn't
Well,
mean
that's
you did the right thing.
okay. If you
Just
skydive
means
with
you're
a,
Superman.
yeah, maybe. I think that's a different story entirely. I think the more apt description comparison would be if you skydive and you have a broken parachute, or if you're not carrying a backup parachute, right? Just because you're making that you're surviving, that doesn't mean things can go wrong, and the fact that you don't have a backup one can be deadly, can be lethal. And this was like the third trip that Titan made. So a little bit more information about the vessel itself. It's made of carbon fiber and titanium, and it moves about 3.5 miles per hour, 3 knots. The material composition has. There are some folk experts and engineers who have sort of spoken about mixing carbon fiber and titanium. There are sort of scenarios where if it's built in a certain way, the difference of the materials can pose a safety risk. Again, without I think more details, they can't say for sure, but some people have raised a concern about that. This is probably the biggest one that I think has been memed around. The sub is piloted using a PlayStation Logitech Bluetooth controller. You're not hearing that wrong. If you haven't been following this case, yeah, that's true. The submersible that is supposed to go 4,000 meters at 13,000 feet below the surface is steered using a video game controller.
I
Now,
think I've used that controller. The
yes,
vibration feedback is good, so approved.
yes,
I
and it's.
approve of that decision.
Did you have the Logitech one though?
Yeah, the Logitech one.
The Logitech Bluetooth, yeah. Now I don't know
Very
about
good
you.
connection.
So I was gonna say about that. So I've had any Logitech Bluetooth controllers that I've used. I've had problems with the Bluetooth, and I'm here. And it's I know that the CEO has said on video that they carry backup controllers, but if the Bluetooth is not working at that depth, I don't think having 7 or 10 Bluetooth controllers is really going to help you. Now I don't have any verification of this, so this is speculation. So I don't want to say that that went wrong. Maybe they do have steering capabilities, and I do want to mention that there are entities that do use video game controllers. At the U.S. Navy, for example, uses Xbox controllers. I believe this is not even a joke. I think they have a deal with Microsoft because at a certain point, I think they used, the sensor that used to pick up 3D. I forgot the name for it, but the Xbox. I know they used it for
Connect?
the
Or that's
Connect. Yeah,
PlayStation, actually. Wait.
yeah. Oh, is that? No, I think Connect. It doesn't matter. Yeah, so I know they have used that for R&D in general. So there are sort of use
No, it's
cases of.
Xbox. Yeah, Connect is
Yeah,
Xbox.
yes, Connect. The Connect Xbox. Like you can use it for these high risk situation or R&D purposes. So I don't want to just demonize the fact that they used the PlayStation Logitech Bluetooth controller. But there was a video where the reporter literally face palmed when he was shown that, and it is a modified controller, by the way. It's not just like off the shelf. Um, some other details. It has 4 thrusters. I think that's kind of important that the thrusters are used to move around. It has that one opening that's bolted, as I mentioned at the time of descent, and the passengers all sit on the floor. There's no room for standing, as you might imagine. It's 8 feet high, but I don't think it's like standing 8 feet high. I think it has like obviously a flooring on the bottom that makes the actual height for humans much shorter. There was an interview done about like 6 months ago, where a reporter kind of goes into the vessel, and he mentions that it's sort of built in a very improvised way. It looks almost, he uses the word jerry rigged and MacGyvery, and the CEO defends himself, but it does seem very sort of cutting corners. I think the biggest one that I thought was camping lights used as interior lighting and construction pipes as ballast, which I don't know why you'd cut corners when each seat is worth $250,000, when you're making $1 million per trip. I know making these vessels are expensive in general, but you can't cut corners on anything when you're going that deep below. It just doesn't make any sense. So
Uh,
it's
well, I kind of disagree there,
okay, Mr.
but
Rush.
I'm gonna. Yeah, the only way this would be more ridiculous if the CEO was named Jerry MacGyver.
Yeah, Jerry MacGyver. Yeah. Oh
But
my God.
I
Yeah.
feel like it's fine if some of the stuff that doesn't matter is a little bit like cutting corners. Like
Hmm.
I don't really care if the soap is like instead of dish soap,
Oh
and
yeah.
instead of
Yeah.
like Dove soap or
Sure.
something or Lysol, it's some cheap no name
Hmm.
brand. And
Hmm.
I feel like that's kind of what's happening with the some of the stuff in the sub, but safety wise, yes, definitely agree that it
Mm.
seems like they didn't really check off all of the precautions here.
Yeah, and I agree with you in terms of this. If there's soap and other stuff like water, you don't have to get Poland Spring or anything like that. I agree with you. But some of these things, while it may not seem offhand important, interior lights is hugely important when you're dead in the water. If you don't have that light, you're completely in the dark, and I don't mean that. I mean that literally. You're completely in the dark. Your phone will run out of battery. You may bring flashlights, but that will run out of battery. Construction pipes of ballast. I mean, are these pipes? Are these pipes checked? Are they using? Are they reusing pipes that they previously had? Are these rusted pipes? There's so many things that go into that may not seem safety oriented, but they 100% are. And it's to me, it's more of a sign of a lazy outlook on the
Hmm.
whole build of this submersible. This is only the things that we do know, that the monitors that they're using are off the shelf, are not high end, and all that stuff. Yeah, sure, the monitors being off the shelf may not be the biggest issue, but
Hmm.
the bolts that they're using to seal uh, the submersible, are
Yeah.
they off the shelf? Are they being reused? Are they not getting new bolts? These are it shows a culture of a lazy culture, a cutting
Mm.
corners culture, which may go into other things. And again, I reiterate, this vessel was not certified. It wasn't. There's a step by step classification process that almost, or this is a stand like industry norm. It's an industry standard that most pressure vessels, especially that are going deep, they're going for deep dives. They're all they all go through that classification process where they evaluate the safety, they evaluate just the construction, the design of it, so they can classify the vessel, essentially, how far they can go, how much pressure it can withstand, etc., etc. If you don't have an independent group of folks doing the classification process, you can't be certified. You can't just build a vessel and say, okay, yeah, it's good to go. We did our testing. You can't just do you can't have interior testing and just say, yeah, we're good. It just doesn't make any sense. And the people have sort of talked about why that was the case. How did they get away with it? And I mean, this is a just to give you details on how they operated. The vessel itself, first of all, the vessel itself doesn't transport itself to the wreck site. It has a bigger ship that is called the Polar Prince. That bigger ship essentially transports the submersible to the site of the descent, and then it goes down. And it side of the descent is international waters, where OceanGate, the company, basically does not have. They're not under U.S. regulation, and that's really one of the biggest reasons why they can get away with it. We'll go into the sort of that whole
Oh
process, the
wow.
history behind that. It's extremely shady to say to be the most neutral. It's, I would say, shady. A little bit more information on the submersible. It obviously, at that depth, you can't use GPS. You can't really reach a satellite to use the GPS system. And communications between the vessel and the ship, the main ship, is through a text messaging system, an SMS system. Very very old style, but honestly, that's you're sort of limited to that. So I don't really blame that's not really neither here nor there. It does have, according to the specifications that the company provided, it has 7 redundant designs, meaning that
Oh,
they're
sorry for interruption, but it's
yeah, of
actually pretty
course,
surprising that text messaging still works. They're
yeah,
literally like miles and miles under the surface of the ocean.
correct,
My
yes.
text messaging doesn't even work in the subway.
Well, I'm not sure about the exact uh, way they do it, but the reason why yours doesn't work under the or ours don't work under the station is because there's nothing to receive that signal and then send that signal to the recipient of the text. Here it's just a one-way system, excuse me, a two-way system, a back and forth system.
Uh-huh.
So it's a lot more simple, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh,
Again,
interesting.
I don't know the full details on that, but I'm sure they have sort of a transponder or something that can send the message and receive the message one way from the main ship. So it's probably a very simple system because at that depth you have very limited options, and it's not like they need to talk to the world or anything. They just need to communicate with the polar prince. Um, at this point, one of the biggest thing, two of the biggest things really, it has 7 designs to surface, and these are all
Hmm.
redundant designs built in to the ship so that they would even operate even if there was power failures. That's very important. These designs include various weights that they can drop to surface up, and thrusters that we mentioned before, airbags, these are supposed to be very robust systems. So even if you lose power halfway to the descent or at some point during the expedition, the idea is any one of these redundant designs, meaning even if one goes down, there should be other design, other surfacing methods
Yeah.
that should work. It just will make you pop back up on the surface where it's much easier to be rescued, much easier to actually find. But we don't even know. We honestly don't even know if they surfaced. We don't know if they're down there. At this point, we have theories, but again, we don't know if that system was compromised, if they're stuck under something. At this, we're really just shooting in the dark. The vessel itself is rated for 4,000 meters, which is about 13, a little bit more than 13,000 feet. And the Titanic wreck, and this is where I think my head started scratching a little bit. The wreck itself is 12.5 thousand feet below, and that's
Hmm.
about 600 feet of like uh, margin, and that really that rubs me the wrong way.
Hey,
Let me
that's a
just say
lot.
that that's a lot. So even if you miss it, and I wish I could show a picture of where the wreck is. It's sort of on a slanted seabed. With the ocean current, you can go deeper. You can be pushed to go deeper than
Oh,
than 12.5 thousand feet. So again, that was the first thing that I read that really made me scratch my head. That, and this is by the way their numbers. They haven't been certified by an outside organization, an independent organization that almost all vessels go through before making any dives. This is their own specification of what the vessel is rated for. So I can't help but doubt a little bit of this, even though they have made dives with this vessel before. That doesn't necessarily mean it's safely rated for that depth.
it
That's
makes
just
me
my
think that
opinion.
they came up with that number themselves, like the 4,000 meters. It's
Right.
likely that it could be higher, but they're just saying, okay, Titanic is at 3,000, like 800 or something.
Hmm.
We can go to 4,000, so don't worry about it. Like, we'll be good.
We'll be good. Right. It's
But still, you're right though.
yeah.
It's a little close. Like, they could have at least bumped the number a little bit if they were going to come up with it themselves.
Mm,
Because
that's a
uh,
good point. That's a good point. Yeah.
it's like walking into
Right.
an elevator that says like 200 pounds
Right.
maximum, and you're like 190.
Yeah. Yeah. I wouldn't. Let's not get into that. Let's take the stairs. I'm not trusting that. Yeah, exactly. And really, the biggest important thing about the sub before we go into the timeline, the U.S. Coast Guard estimates 96 hours of air supply from when the vessel is sealed, and that specification is directly. I thought when the U.S. Coast Guard announced that, I thought that was their own sort of uh, guess at how much air supply they have, and I was wrong. This is from the Titan website. This is their own specification. That's OceanGate's specification of how much
Oh,
air supply they have, which is why Doubt again. I I didn't doubt them until I dug into their history a little bit more. So this 96 hours of air supply that everyone is quoting and everyone's kind of going by, I am not even sure if they have 96 hours to begin with.
It's probably
Uh,
half.
I don't think it's half, but and 96 hours, by the way, is 4 days exactly of air supply. It's probably a little bit more. They usually estimate below because you can have panic moments, which usage that increases the usage of oxygen. Usually, these estimates are err on the side of caution. They probably have more than they're saying, and that's what I thought when the U.S. Coast Guard announced it. But after I realized they got the number from the Titan website directly and OceanGate directly, I'm not sure if yeah. Let's just say it's press X to doubt. Let's just say that. Um, yeah. So that's again, that's just information that you can find on their website. Again, I'm gonna put a link to that. We're gonna put our source notes on this episode. You can go to their website and read all of this. This is not no specul. There's no speculation on that. These are things that they admit themselves. So it's already a little shaky. I'm not gonna lie. It sounds weird. Would you get in this sub if you knew all of this and they're giving you this paperwork that says it's unapproved, it's an experimental vessel? I know you said if you're a 77 you would get in, but let's be honest, would you get in?
Yeah, that was like a joke, but I feel like okay, what makes it tough is that it's come up before.
Yeah,
Like it is not the first time.
true. Yes. Mm-hmm.
That's the thing that gets me because I feel like if I had the money to do it, I might have got on. I
Mm-hmm.
really
Mm-hmm.
might have because they've done it before. Stockton Rush is quite a handsome man, if I may say so myself.
He is charismatic. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, like he's kind of like he has kind of like a who's the captain's name from 10,000 Leagues Under the Sea again? He has that kind of
Oh,
vibe to him.
oh. That is a reference on its own. 10,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
Captain Nemo, yeah, he has like that Captain Nemo vibe.
Captain Nemo.
Um,
Yeah.
so I
Captain
think I would
Nemo. Oh
get
yeah, yeah,
on.
Yeah. You could get. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think I
And
would.
I
I
I
love
don't.
Titanic.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. See, I don't blame you, right? Because I think that's the mindset, especially the non-technical folks that got in, the billionaires
Hey,
and the
hey,
no, I'm not calling you non-technical. The billionaires who got in, and by the way, there were people that were asked to be on board, maybe not on this trip, but
let's stay
previous
civil
trips,
now.
and and that they have rejected it on the basis of what they read. And to me, and I know this is in hindsight, I have not heard of this, I'd not read this before they went missing, but reading this, just going on their website and getting this information for this episode, I just could not believe people would get in even with the money,
Oh
especially
shit,
especially given the
he's
price
disconnected.
point. Even if I had that as chump change, even if I heard that they came back, the really the biggest thing that
Wait,
I
Abs. I
yes.
didn't hear the last 5 seconds ish.
Mhm.
I don't know if you felt anything like you disconnect or something, but
Okay. Okay. So I'll just
you could not believe that's
yeah,
kind of where.
no problem. Yeah, so getting doing this research, just the initial research on the specification of this craft and everything, the biggest thing that held me back was the fact that it was unapproved and non-certified. So the fact that really was my stopping gap of okay, everything that I just read about the specification of this submersible
Hmm.
came directly from the people who made it. I know it's a, and I, some respect has to be given to the CEO for actually going on he's
That's the thing
piloting.
that gets me.
Yeah,
He
go
was
ahead.
in the submarine himself.
And not only that, he's piloting the submersible. And by the way, submersible, not submarine. The big difference.
Oh, really now?
Yes, yeah. So I know a lot of people have had this. I know on the memes and even some news outlets, bro. I've seen like submarine is a bigger vessel. They operate on similar idea, but obviously a submarine is a lot more complex.
Clearly, it's not obvious.
Fair enough. Um, but either way, yes. Go. I apologize for interrupting you.
No, please interrupt me.
Yeah, I think it is a pretty big showing that this. I think that's part of his charisma, part of his riz. He's saying, "I'm gonna pilot it. I made this, and I'm gonna pilot it." I think that has a lot to, you know, lot to do with people saying, "Oh yeah, I'm down to go." And again, the fact that the French Navy commander guy who's gone to the Titanic 35 times,
Hmm.
and he's saying, "Yeah, this is cool." Is I don't I know there's a lot of people blaming some of these passengers. I know there's a lot of a lot of subtext of, yeah, they had that money to throw around, they deserve to die or something, or they don't feel as bad. And I just I don't know. I listen, I'm all for philanthropy, but these are people that were goaded in. I think there was a lot of misinformation that they were fed themselves. And yes, I say that even if the CEO himself is piloting the submersible, I think there was a lot of misleading things that brought the other passengers on board. And I think that will be sort of dug up more in the next coming weeks, and maybe we'll do like a second part and more update episodes. But I think there's a lot more that we don't know about this, just the vessel itself, and and the marketing inside. So, John, I'm just gonna we let's dive into the timeline. What do you
Let's
think?
dive in.
Let's dive
Let's
in.
dive in,
Yeah,
Mr.
and
Rush.
yeah, and listen, the listeners, you can't fathom, no pun intended, the amount of information we still have left. So the timeline really starts on last Friday, the 16th, when the sub takes off from Newfoundland, Canada. That's the closest, really the closest coast to the wreck site. And really, one of the biggest red flags started right after on the way there on Saturday. One of the adventurer posted on his social media that this will likely be the first and only trip in 2023 because of bad weather. Um, and why they're still continuing this one, I don't know. I think his comment also said, or excuse me, his post also said, because the weather was favorable the next day, they would dive the next day. So the next day arrives on Sunday. They actually start their descent 4 hours after, with a 4 hour delay. They officially start their descent on 12 p.m. noon Greenwich Mean Time. On our end, on Eastern Time, that was 7 a.m. Sunday. So that's last Sunday. That's the hatch itself, the door itself is closed approximately 10 a.m. GMT, 5 a.m. Eastern Time. By the way, if you're doing math, that's 4 days from then is Thursday, 5 a.m. So tomorrow, 5 a.m. is the approximate time when the air supply runs out. So it's we're recording this Wednesday, the 21st, 10 p.m. That's 7 hours from now. In fact,
Okay.
it's 10:30 now, so it's 6.5 hours. So so the
Damn, what are
descent
you, a
start.
genius?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm flexing my math muscle on you. Um,
Very impressive, though. Really.
it's that's I mean that's not impressive. That's all like reported, if anything. So starting at 12 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time, it took approximately 2 hours to do the descent get to the wreck site, and really the first problem started an hour and 45 minutes into the descent, when the communication between the submersible and the main ship goes down. And right at this point, I don't think they're panicking too much. They're thinking, okay, the communications have gone down. That doesn't necessarily mean something big has gone wrong. We've mentioned that it has many redundant design to just surface up.
Wow.
So sorry, go ahead.
No, you cut out for like a little bit, but I'm
Oh,
not
I'm sorry.
sure if it actually happened on. Hmm.
I guess we'll find out. I
Okay.
guess we'll
Yeah.
find out.
Yep.
So
Sounds good.
yeah, the biggest, the first
It's
first thing
cutting
that
out just like Our podcast.
Yeah. So you know what? We'll stay true to the topic at hand. If communications between us, break down, that's okay. Um, yeah, an hour 45 into the descent, communications go down, and really, I don't think the Polar Prince, the main ship, made too much of a big deal about it. I think they were still keeping hope. I think they were still under protocol, and the sub was expected to make surface 7 hours after they started a descent, which is approximately 7 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time, 2 p.m. Eastern Time
Hmm.
on Sunday. And that's when I think they started worrying a little bit more. They let about 2 hours, excuse me, they let about 3 hours go past at 9:40 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time. About 10 hours after the initial descent, they alert the Coast Guard that the submersible is essentially missing. By Monday, really right from the start, the Coast Guard, the U.S. and the Canada started sending ships and planes for rescue, and this is where we kind of go into the hitch of what a rescue in of that depth really means, right? Uh, you can't just go and there are no vessels that you can man readily to that depth. Now, at this point, we still don't know.
Wait, doesn't
Mhm.
James Cameron have one? Didn't he
Correct.
use that for Titanic?
Yeah, absolutely. There are pressure vessels that are ready to go down that depth,
Oh shit, I
but
was joking.
no, absolutely there are.
That, that
But
was a real vehicle?
yeah, yeah, there are vessels. In fact, the one of the passengers, Hamish Harding, has gone down to the Marianas Trench, which is much deeper than the actual depth. I think it's like 36,000 feet, and we're talking about this. The Titanic wreck is at 13,000 feet, so that's almost as deep, 3 times as deep as the Titanic wreck. Obviously, he probably went on a vessel that was rated for that depth. Uh, and they're robustly tested, they're certified by those industry standards that we talked about.
Hmm.
Yes, those things exist, but you for one, you can't just bring them. They themselves can't transport to the wreck site. Two, it takes time to prepare the vessel itself to start the descent. It's not just you bring the thing in, you just drop it, and then it goes.
Hmm.
It has to go through a lot of safety prep from the get go. If you want to if you want to make this rescue on time, those aren't really feasible options. And number three, those vessels that do deep sea diving, and the submersible that is missing is included in there. They're not for rescue. You can't really rescue using those vessels. There's You don't have any capabilities other than steering, turning the lights on, turning the lights off, and probably turning on the thrusters to go up and go down.
Can
That's
you
it.
explain that a little bit more? Like, why can't
Mm-hmm.
they be used for rescue? Is it like because
Mm-hmm.
there's no way to transfer people from one to the other? Like, what happens?
Oh yeah, I mean, there is no way to transfer. Okay, so let me backtrack a little bit. First of all, we don't know at this point, at that point on the timeline, we don't know where the submersible exactly is. They were doing a lot of surface searches on general because honestly, that is the best case scenario. If they surfaced at some point on the sea, by the way, this is a vast, remote part of the ocean. It's not just looking, it's not even comparable to someone trying to find a house on top of a plane. It's much worse than that. And if it's on the surface, it's a lot easier because you can use satellite imagery. You can look out of a plane. But if it's not on the surface, and at this point I think people are pretty certain that it has not surfaced, that is probably at the bottom of the ocean floor. It is it's like I think a needle in a haystack is still not an appropriate analogy. It's an amazingly difficult search just to locate the sub if it's somewhere stuck underwater. So that's one. Just finding it is one
Mm.
thing. Second, you mentioned, opening it up, in terms of, rescue. That's impossible. So, as we mentioned, the sub itself, the only door, only exit and entrance is sealed shut using bolts, and that's because you want to make sure that it's protected from the pressure that's going to be outside, and we're talking about 6,000 psi. For that to happen, if the sub is stuck underwater, even if you reach it, with however many hours it took you to bring another diving equipment, man that diving equipment, follow the safety procedures, and then start the 2 hour plus descent, and however many hours it takes to locate the submersible. That's it just By the way, I just gave you an impossible scenario. Once you do that, there is nothing you can do other than maybe push the vehicle if it's stuck somewhere, maybe stuck on the debris of the wreck, or it's stuck somewhere inside the ship wreckage itself, or tangled up on something called ghost nets, which is basically fish nets, that went down to the ocean floor.
Oh.
You can maybe help it wriggle out, possibly, but the operation that you have on any deep dive submersible is, it's not even limited. There is none other than turning on the light, because everything has to be protected by the pressure. You can't have sort of mechanical arms. Well, at the I should say, we don't have the technology of mechanical arms that we can control to move things around, that with extreme precision that you might need to unstuck, to basically free up a vehicle that's stuck down there. So that's one. Second thing is, even if you get a mechanical arm, or you get a mechanism where you can attach your deep diving vehicle to the submersible that is missing,
Hmm.
if you're manning that, you don't have the capabilities to then go up. Now, you might say, why don't we put in more capabilities? If you put in more capabilities, that means more safety testing, more prep time, and a lot more time to descend down, and a lot more time to maneuver that vehicle itself. It's the same idea as when you include payload on a spacecraft, right? The more
Hmm.
fuel you take, the more mass you have on the spacecraft, meaning the more fuel you'll need. So it becomes sort of a problem. It's a circular problem, really. So in terms of a rescue, most experts have weighed in, if it's stuck under the water, the best case scenario, even if you go and find the submersible, which is a huge deal of in and of itself, you don't even know if you can wriggle it out free for a rescue attempt. There's a reason why the Titanic shipwreck and other shipwrecks are not taken out, because we do not have the technology to go down and have mechanisms to attach it and then bring it up. This is 4,000 meters. You can't just attach a rope and then attach it to the pulley on a ship and start pulling it, right? I know that sounds like a joke, but I think sometimes people really can't fathom just how deep 4,000 meters is, right? It's an amazing amount of depth. It takes 2 hours for this submersible that is lightweight to just get down to the vessel itself. Having said all of that, planes, ships, rescue vehicles are arriving day after day. The first couple of planes and ships, they sent out sonar buoys, which is essentially things that go down. I think they go down almost 4,000 meters, which is about the amount of the wreck, and they use sonar technology to see if they can locate anomalies and things like that. And that's another sort of a big hitch on the rescue attempts. There is no light. There is no GPS system. There is no satellite imagery that you can use to aid in your research, or aid in your search here.
Mm.
They have to use sonar and sound and echo, for the rescue attempts, and even that, just to get a little bit more technical on the search side, the the surface It's not just a flat surface. The anomalies that they're looking out for are not even, you don't have a set thing that you're analyzing against, right? Because you haven't mapped out the entire ocean floor. You haven't mapped out the entire ocean in general. The ocean currents are constantly changing the floor itself. So it's an increasingly difficult thing to search for anything that you're looking for. Even if you hear sounds, and we're going to get to hearing sounds here, you don't even know if the sounds are coming from a man-made source or a natural source. So it, having said that, we go to Tuesdays on the 20th, where a Canadian aircraft reported that they
Hmm.
detected sounds over several hours during the day, and they described it as a banging sound that happened every 30 minutes, which again points to the fact that it may be man-made, because nature doesn't have a 30-minute interval. And to me, usually I wouldn't believe in this, and there are some unverified, by the way, sources. If you see a source that says it gave an SOS signal, that's all unverified. We don't know. But there are some unverified sources that it was a SOS signal. Given that the one of the passenger is a search expert, I would not be surprised if the 30-minute interval banging was coming from this vessel itself. It was probably his instructions, if that was the passengers doing it. We just don't know. We don't even know if the sounds are verified to be coming from the passengers. It could still be a natural sound. And by the way, the sound has stopped since then.
Oh
You can
shit.
you can take that however you would like. And I believe the next day, the next day is today, officially on the Wednesday. The U.S. Coast Guard did confirm that they heard similar noises as well, and they were being analyzed by the Navy. And again, more and more rescue vehicles were coming. I think the most recent one, the most hyped up one, was this robot called the Victor 6000, something you talked about. That, and this one I believe can go down to 20,000 feet. So and this is an unmanned vehicle, by the way. So this is completely remote, and I think they're gonna use that to, at the very least, search the bigger depths, because we just don't know where the sub is. We're guessing that it's near the Titanic wreck, but we don't know. Um, and that's really all the updates at the moment of this recording in terms of the timeline. And again, I want to reiterate, Thursday morning Eastern time, 5 a.m. is when
Oh,
the air supply approximately runs out. So, time is literally ticking,
oh my gosh.
and many nations are participating there. It was really, the rescue attempt started at the minute that the U.S. Coast Guards were alerted. I do want to give them a big shout out. The Canadian Rescue Force as well, the French Navy that sent the Victor 6000 robot. I believe it arrived Wednesday evening. It's it's such a remote part of the ocean. Its searching is not only difficult, it's dangerous for the the rescuers. And it just, man, there was a lot of optimism that was coming from the rescuers, I think, the first couple of days. And I think the mood is starting to change from rescue to recovery,
Wow.
unfortunately. And I don't blame them, because even if they find it, we have 7 hours, technically, approximately. Even if you find it, how are you going to get it up if it's somewhere stuck under? And that's going to
That's
be the biggest issue.
that's what I'm really curious about. Like, what does a proper rescue here look like? Do you need a bigger vessel that can
Mm,
kind of consume the vessel that needs rescuing? Like how,
mm,
because you said it before, like how a robot and an arm couldn't really do anything, and also
mm-hmm.
there's a matter of it. You cannot really transfer the people from one vessel to another at that
Yeah,
pressure. So like, what does a rescue even look like?
right. that depends on the scenarios, the potential scenarios, and there have been many that has been floated around, no pun intended, by
Oh
experts
my
on the field. And we're talking about oceanographers, marine engineers, and etc. I'll summarize some of the things now. The best case scenario is that they're lost at sea, and they are able to surface somehow. If that happens, then the rescue attempts is extremely simplified, where you can, as long as you can find the vessel and you can use satellite imagery if it's on the surface, and even planes and human eye, you can take the closest vessel. It could be a commercial a vessel as well. It can be a fishing boat for God's sake, something to at least go and to the location of the found submersible. At that point, someone with the tools to open up the vehicles can come. Remember, if it's on the surface, they can open up the vessel pretty fairly easily. That's the best case scenario. I just don't think that's likely anymore. The fact that they haven't found any surface evidence of the submersible, it just doesn't seem very likely to me, and that would really simplify the rescue attempts. Other scenarios, for example, like power failures or some kind of equipment failures, or even the vessel being stuck on a wreck, on the wreck, or tangled in ghost nets, those imply that those, or there could be a fire inside, that either incapacitates the passengers or kills them directly. Those scenarios indicate that the submersible is on the ocean floor. In that case, rescue attempt is uh, damn near impossible. You might be able to recover the submersible in time, but to bring up the submersible on time to open it up at this point it's just impossible. I just barring some sort of miracle with ocean currents, or I don't even
or
know,
Dwayne the Rock Johnson.
or Aquaman. I thought you were gonna say Jason Momoa, but but
That's that's even better.
yeah. Other than that, it just, again, if it's stuck underwater there, if it's stuck on something, you might be able to use a robot or a deep diving equipment to wriggle it out free. But it's like using a bowling ball to bring up another bowling ball when it's 10 stories below. So you're trying to bring it up to the roof with another bowling ball.
Hmm.
It just doesn't. It's just physically not possible with the technology we do have. And again, the worst case scenario, or in some people's mind, it is a better case scenario than a power failure, is an implosion. Any sort of leak, any sort of opening on the vessel itself can lead to a huge implosion of the pressure vessel. If you remember what I said about the pressure vessels that we see on an everyday basis, like a pressure cooker, for example, they have internal pressure that causes to explode. This type of submersible is a pressure vessel that works the other way around. It's withstanding 6,000 pounds per square inch. Any little hole, if you even attempt to open it up, if it hasn't imploded, it will implode. And that could have happened during the descent, but we just don't know if those banging sounds were from the passengers. Most likely, they had some sort of a failure, or they are stuck on something because, you know, logically speaking, from what they provided, they should be able to surface even with the a power failure, even if they were swept away from the wreck area. As long as they had the surfacing capabilities they had, you'd think that they would be able to surface, or at the very least, you know, come up from the ocean floor. But again, we just don't know until we find the actual submersible.
What would implosion look like?
Oh man,
Like
I mean,
if
you
if they
yeah, go ahead.
opened the door, like what would that
Hmm.
actually look like?
So if you take a plastic bottle, right? And the best way I can let you visualize the implosion without just looking it up on Google is if you, for example, if that water bottle is at a certain level of ocean depth, right?
Uh huh.
And you open the bottle bottle cap, right? It would implode from the body of the bottle would just stick to each other. It would just crunch up. It would become as
Oh, like
flat as possible.
wow, like
Yes,
crumpled up.
exactly. The essentially it finds a way to equalize the pressure, that the difference that is outside and the inside. So the opposite means that there is pressure. For example, if you blow up a water bottle in that example, obviously you're putting more pressure inside. It looks for the weakest point, which probably is the bottle cap, and it explodes that way. If that weak point is strengthened, then it would explode like unilaterally. In this case, an implosion really, as soon as it has some type of a leak, any small leak, a pinhole prick can lead to an implosion. It's at This is an unimaginable depth that it just, as humans, we're not meant to be to be able to really visualize that. If listeners, you guys can obviously go and Google it. There are gifs of and videos of implosions that has happened before, and you can definitely take a look at that. But yeah, if you imagine
Wow,
a bottle of water, empty bottle of water that just becomes as flat as possible at that depth, it would become as flat as possible, I believe. There's just so much pressure. It doesn't matter what's inside.
that's crazy to imagine. Cause this is like the
Mm-hmm.
hardest metal we know. It's like
Yeah.
thick, thick ass metal,
Mm-hmm.
just crumpling up like paper. That's crazy.
Yeah. I mean,
Actually, yeah, yeah, go. Sorry,
I will
sorry.
say that we don't know if we'll crumple up with paper, right? Because we don't know the safety specifications. I believe the thickness of the material is posted on their website, if I'm not
Uh
mistaken. So
huh.
someone can run a scenario on that. But I'm just giving an example of an implosion that can happen. But it will crumple for sure if implosion will lead to that, especially at that depth.
Damn. Yeah, I was wondering if there was a way that if they had brought extremely powerful suits, then
There
they
are no
could.
suits available. There are no technologically speaking. So if I know a lot of people, I've seen this comment also
Uh
in
huh.
many TikToks and Reddits and stuff like that.
My
Suits are
people.
yeah, your people. Suits if you can actually imagine, if you look
Hmm.
up sort of medieval diving suits, they exist.
Mm.
There are these really cool sort of
Bioshock.
thing. Yeah, it's really awesome. The technology existed for a while, but at this depth, obviously it's just not possible with any technology or materials we do have. Imagine a suit of armor that's thickly padded. I mean, forget the weight, forget the fact that you can't move if you have that kind of suit. But if a suit implies sort of points of weakness, for example, let's say your armpit, that's going to have points where the safety is going to be tested and it's going to be a weak point. There's a
I
reason
see.
why all safety vessels, all diving vessels are cylindrical. That's the same sort of idea why Coke cans, soda cans are not rectangular; they're cylindrical. It's really for the internal pressure, so it doesn't just pop. So that's yeah. So I know it's easy to think about a robot, humanoid robot suit to go down, but at that depth, you're not surviving. You're mush by the time I think you're halfway down there. I don't think you're even making it down 2,000 meters.
Wait, then how come the underwater robot, the Victor 6000,
Hmm.
how is that shaped then? Is
The
that don't doesn't that have arms?
Victor 6000. Oh, you can definitely have arms, but it's not the arms that you might be thinking of. By the way, the Victor 3000, if I'm remember correctly, I'll look it up right now. It doesn't have arms. It's kind of like a,
Oh,
um,
interesting.
it's like a rectangular piece of it's not rectangular, what
But
do
it
you call
doesn't have like
a cube
limbs. I see. I see.
shape. Yeah, they have sort of other equipments like light cameras and like things to maneuver the robot itself, but you can have pipes. You can have sort of little armatures and stuff like that,
Hmm.
but those are all rated say for that depth, and you can't really have weak points of that you can move around. So even if you have the robot that you build, you can build it. I think with enough materials you might be able to build it, but there is going to be zero maneuverability. You'd be just literally floating all the way
Got it.
down and hope that the ocean currents can bring you back up, because
Uh
no,
huh.
you can't just tie a rope. I guess you can tie yeah, you can tie a rope technically, but you need like the biggest pulley ever made, probably, and a freaking frigate to use that to bring you back up.
Just tread
Uh,
water, man.
just no, I should say it's probably possible. I don't want to say it's not possible, but it's 100% not feasible.
No,
And
but that
there,
gives a lot of yeah, that clarifies a
yeah,
lot for me.
yeah, and I'm not an expert by any means, by any stretch of that word. I have some research, and that's about it. And uh, there's a reason why you have these deep sea diving vessels that are just highly rated in safety standards. But that's the scenario at the moment. We just don't know. It's That's the thing, right?
That's scary.
Even if you say if you had a robot, right? Where do you start searching? You can start at the wreck, but you don't know if it's there. You don't know if the ocean currents took it somewhere else. That's why they're sending the robot to see if they can even locate the missing sub in the first place.
Hmm. Yeah, I can't even imagine what the people inside are thinking right now.
Hmm. Yeah, that's the situation is, by any stretch of I mean, even with the biggest optimism, inside it has to be one of the worst feelings ever. So at the time of this recording, about like 93, 94 hours have passed since the descent. If it's stuck somewhere, if it's under the water, the situation, it has to be the most dire. If the oxygen hasn't even run out, if the lights even if the lights are working, it's absolutely pitch black at that depth. The light does not reach you. So even if the interior lights or the exterior lights are operating,
Uh huh.
it will look bleak. Claustrophobia at that remember, it's a small minivan type cylinder with 5 people stuck inside. You cannot stand up. You probably cannot sleep. 4 days have passed. There's probably not enough food or water. A previous trip that went, they mentioned that they
Hmm.
basically get one lunch. They That's about it. So you do not have 4 days of food or 4 days of water. Maybe you have 4 days of water, but probably not food. If they're alive, they're probably breathing some of their last breath. I really hope. I mean, having said like I'm saying all of this, I just hope they're alive. I hope it defies all the thinking, all the physics, all the science, and like I hope that we're missing a piece. I hope that, oh, they had more oxygen than we thought they did. I really, really, truly hope for the best for these passengers. Despite what I think about the CEO, I really, really hope they find him alive. They find them alive. But even if the oxygen's okay, there's probably, the emotions are tense. There's probably some anger and blame going around. The air itself is probably thick. There's like 90 plus hours of BO. There's urine, there's feces, there's probably someone thrown up. There's vomit in the air. And it's a small space, man. You can't not smell all of that. And and between all of this, you're trying to
Start
breathe.
blaming each other for farting.
Farting, I mean,
Like,
forget that, bro. I mean, you remember, imagine you're driving a car and then you like fart, and I'm driving you guys, and it's like, we are like 4 people and I fart, and oh man, y'all are smelling it. We're talking about stuck in this for 4 days. No food, no water, one little toilet in the trunk. There's zero contact with the outside world. You feel like, I don't think alone is an understatement. You feel lost. It's just the only thing you're hearing is probably the hull creaking, maybe some outside noises. You don't even know what those noises are. You don't know if the noises are alive or they're dead. You don't know if you're seeing a ghost. Maybe you're looking out the one window that they have, and maybe you see something staring back at you. It's man, I can't imagine if the passenger is alive. I just can't imagine what they're feeling. It just the sense of dread, the sense of loneliness, the sense of helplessness. There's nothing you can do. There's no one you can contact. If the banging noise are from them, that's the only thing you can do. You can bang and you can hope that someone hears, and you know man, yeah, who knows.
God damn. I feel like the dad must feel so bad
Yeah,
because,
yeah.
like you
Hmm.
said, the son probably like you probably feel for the son the most. I also feel for the dad because
Yeah,
he
yeah,
was the one who brought the son. He's probably like thinking, "Oh, this would be such a great trip to like bring my son on,
yeah.
like father son
Hmm.
bonding time," and this is what happens. Like that must
Yeah,
feel terrible.
yeah. I can, and also, like, my our thoughts to and prayers to the families of these passengers as well. I'm still holding out hope and optimism until anything is found, or any news is sent. Yeah, it I can't imagine knowing knowing your loved one is at somewhere in the ocean, and you can't do anything about it. you know if God forbid John, you called me and you said, look, I'm not, my stomach's hurting and there's pain, blah blah blah, I can come and take you to the hospital. Is That's the least I can do. Oh, I can't leave my apartment because X, Y, and Z. I can at least go there and rescue you, or at the very least find out what's going on. There's no way for these families to do anything. There's just nothing they can do other than wait. Man, yeah, no, nothing else.
Yeah. Well, it's it's reassuring that many countries have put their best men, best
Yeah,
people.
yeah.
Let me correct myself there. Best
Mm-hmm.
people on it.
Mm-hmm. Good point. Good correction. Yes, and again, since
Please
day
edit that.
one. Yeah, of course I'll lift that. No, I won't. Yeah, it's just again, since minute one, the U.S. Coast Guard, Canada, many countries have done the utmost and doing the utmost to. I wish we could. I could show you the first videos of rescuers talking to the camera, and they're filled with optimism, filled with adrenaline. They were it's I can't sing enough praises for them, and even the folks that are out there now, searching. Yeah, I'm holding out hope. We'll see what the update is, what the next official update of the rescuer is. We'll see. Yeah, yeah, that's really all we know so far on that end.
There is one thing that surprises me is that
Mm.
has Elon made a statement on this yet?
I don't think so. I can look. Let me look it up. Yeah. Oh, 7 hours ago, there was Elon Musk breaks silence on Titanic submarine that reportedly used Starlink internet. Huh. I did not know this. This is actually the first time I heard that they use
Oh yeah,
Starlink
I
internet.
did read that, and I
Yeah.
was wonder if I should bring that up later.
Good. I mean, of course you should have, and I'm glad you did. Yeah. Let me take a look at this. Yeah, he did. He responded to a tweet.
Well, first of all, that statement was funny because it was like Elon Musk broke silence. Like,
Yeah.
why shouldn't he have just stayed silent on it? Like, what do you mean?
Okay, so apparently, so the company tweeted earlier this month, despite being in the middle of the North Atlantic, we have the internet connection we need to make our Titanic dive operations a success. Thank you at Starlink. And Mr. Musk responded to a tweet made by Snopes post pointing out that he is the CEO of SpaceX, suggested that the connection between the Starlink and the sub is a psyop.
Huh?
I don't know. I don't fucking understand what's going on here.
What you just said to me was a psyop.
Yeah, I don't know what the hell. Where's the? It doesn't matter. He probably hasn't said anything. Yeah, and then it goes on to non Elon Musk stuff. Yeah, the only thing that says yeah, there's no evidence that Starlink had any play on the vessel's disappearance. Apparently, some people have made that allegation, but yeah, I don't think he has really said anything
Oh,
of
I see.
use. Yeah, this is kind of a, and again, you know what? This is a good example of a media clickbait. There's many clickbait articles, on this. I guess this is it. Yeah. So basically, there were some allegations that there were some conspiracies between the Starlink connection to the submersible, but they're just he hasn't really said anything.
Yeah, I didn't think that it was related anyway, because I don't
Yeah,
think Starlink, which is like satellite communication, can even
right.
be used underwater.
It cannot.
I
It
don't think
cannot be.
it's related.
Yeah, at a certain depth, it cannot be used. I'm sure maybe at surface level, they're probably using the Starlink internet in the middle of the ocean, in the middle of the Atlantic. That does make sense.
Yeah,
But
catch up on the memes.
catch, yeah, really, you joke that's probably what they're doing. But yeah, anyway, we're basically caught up to the present. If you want, we can go very briefly on the things I dug up on the company history.
Let's do it.
Yeah, so this is where I really got angry. This is where when I started reading this, it was just
Uh-oh.
it just head scratch after head scratch, and we'll get there. So the company itself, OceanGate Expedition, started in 2009. Since then they've made many dives to many shipwreck sites, and a lot of the dives involved research and looking at coral growth and other things, other updates from these shipwrecks. They can be great research tools, and they began doing sort of tourist trips to these wreck sites back in 2016. And at this time, they did a lot of dives to. They had many pressure vessels, they had many submersibles, and a lot of their dives involved another wreck site another shipwreck site basically. They really started doing, or at least started planning their Titanic one, which was obviously a very popular one because of just the media behind the Titanic. They knew that there was a lot of money involved. I believe the CEO in Stockton Rush said that himself, that it was a big tourist attraction. So in 2016, they planned their first trip to the Titanic, but they canceled it pretty immediately because of bad weather. However, a lot of people did accuse OceanGate of basically blaming the weather for not having a actually seaworthy or a certified vessel that they could actually dive with.
Hmm.
Um, then they moved on. In 2018, another trip was planned and it was postponed several times. And I believe the reason they gave were just they needed to run more tests. That one of the 2018 trips actually led to a suit from a couple sued OceanGate because their money was not refunded to them, and OceanGate essentially said like, just come on another trip, man. It's like, we didn't cancel the trip, we just postponed it. um yeah,
For
so that's
3 years.
for 3 years.
That's not a
Yeah.
postpone. Uh, that's not your usual rain check. Let's just say that.
Yeah. So amid all these postponements, amid all these probably internal testings, 2018, a former employee, and not even just an employee, the director of the marine operations, warned had internally warned OceanGate about the thickness of the Titan hull. Remember when we
Oh.
talked about the thickness? So we're talking about implosions and material composition and all that crap. So someone who worked on them actually raised concerns, and he also claimed that he was fired for raising these concerns internally. Later on, OceanGate sued him because he breached confidentiality by bringing these issues public. Later on, it
Of course.
yeah, exactly. Later on, 38 experts from the Manned Underwater Vehicles Committee (MUV). This committee sent
No.
a letter, a signed letter, saying, "Listen, they blasted Russia's experimental design, saying that this could result in a minor or catastrophic." Negative outcome. They
Hmm.
raised concerns that the Titan was not classified, which again, this is the norm for all pressure vessels, especially ones that are diving this deep. This involves again an independent group that could include the Manned Underwater Vehicles Committee, the committee that sent the letter. They can do this as well. And again, this includes an independent group to evaluate the vessel for its safety. And there's a set of standards that they go by. It's not just they're arbitrary. Excuse me, not arbitrary, but they're independent, but they have oversight. And you know they said, like, at minimum it should be tested under an independent committee, like the manned water underwater vehicles. And in 2019, OceanGate wrote a blog post, and it was titled, this is tone deaf. It was titled "Why Isn't Titan Classed?" Basically responding to the allegations, the accusations, and all the hubbub that was going on.
Uh-huh.
They said, and I quote, "Innovation often falls outside of the existing industry paradigm, and that, quote, by itself classing is not sufficient to ensure safety."
Mm.
After this post, essentially, if you didn't really understand, like, the wordiness, the verbiage, and all that crap, they're basically saying that, yeah, you're stifling my innovation. Like, the industry standard is too much, and it's not letting us innovate newer technologies. I couldn't believe this part either. Rush, the Stockton Rush, the CEO, called the chairman of the committee that sent the letter, and basically told him that the standards are too much, which is beyond imaginable. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. Again, I'm not familiar with the safety code for underwater manned vehicles, right? I don't know. I'm not familiar with it. Maybe they are stifling, but it does not mean that they're wrong. It doesn't mean, these safeties are often written in blood. Safety codes. There's a huge saying in the circle that says, safety laws are written in blood. Something goes wrong, and then you
Mm.
write the safety. So I just don't think these safety codes were just written because they wanted to write it. And again, they were skating around these regulations, especially the US regulations and probably even Canadian regulations, by deploying in international waters. And another, I believe a New York Times articles also pointed out that submersibles are largely unregulated as well. So it was just a system that was built for some type of catastrophe. There have been past catastrophes, excuse me, past accidents, but if we're just looking at this submersible itself, everything was written on the wall, in my opinion. And these are the things that really rattle me. It's things that that were pointed out, and that involves people, man. That involves you going down to a depth where communications are not limited. They're just one type of communications you can do. It's just beyond me that they were cutting corners when it came to that. And there were more problems in 2020. This is before they even made the first tourist trip. In 2020, the hull of the Titan itself was downgraded to 3,000 meters before it was repaired, or rebuilt. So if you remember, currently the current specifications state that it's rated for 4,000 meters. Something had happened probably during the testing, internal testing, by the way, not an independent group. So it's coming from OceanGate itself,
Huh.
it was downgraded to 3,000 meter before it was re-spec'd to 4,000 meters. Uh, we don't know the specification. Well, at least I don't know what had happened. And since then, in 2021, in July 2021, the Titan did its first tourist trip to the Titanic wreck. One of the dives did have an issue with the battery. There was another, I think, planned dive that had an. This is also ridiculous. Another dive had a problem with the thruster being put on, one of the thrusters being put on backwards, and it was spinning in circles. Yeah, just crazy. It's and that's the kind of problem that happened. And again, there's been 3 trips since that July 2021 date up till now that was successful, that went down, checked, did a viewing of the wreck, and then came back up safely. And now this is this is the moment. I think that's going to be. I'm probably going to play a preview of this on the intro, because it's just crazy. In December 2022, there was an interview. This is the same interviewer that went inside the vehicle, that called the vehicle like jerry rigged,
Uh,
improvised, MacGyvery. When he was shown the PlayStation controller, and there's a video of this, by the way. It's He literally face palmed. He face palms like, this is crazy. He also reads the sort of the passenger paperwork that they have to sign, and he's just making fun of it. He's just roasting it, because it just reads crazy. There's the transcript is also linked. We'll link that as well. And he was, obviously the interviewer was talking about how the vessel itself looked pretty it looked weird.
uh-huh.
And Brandon Stockton Rush, excuse me,
Brandon Rush.
Brandon Rush. Yeah, throwback.
Yeah, what a
Anyway,
blast from
what
that.
of last? Stockton Rush responds by saying they worked with Boeing, NASA, and University of Washington to build the vessel. That's, first of all, it sounds like you're just naming things. It just maybe they did work with them, but that's just like, oh yeah, the 3 things I can think about. Oh yeah, NASA, Boeing, and University of Washington. We worked with them. This is, quote, Stockton Rush continued. He quote, your thrusters can go, meaning fail. Your lights can fail. All these things, excuse me, your thrusters can go, your lights can go, all these things can fail. You're still going to be safe.
Thank God.
Unquote. On safety, later on, the interviewer, blast sort of was like really honing down the safety aspect and the fact that it wasn't certified. And Stockton Rush, quote, said, at some point, safety just is pure waste. I mean, if you want to be safe, don't get out of bed. Don't get in your car. Don't do anything. And this is the CEO of this company and the main person leading the design of a vessel that goes 4,000 meters, man.
I think he needed to add another sentence to that. If you want to be safe, don't get out of bed, don't get in your car, don't get inside my submersible.
Yeah, don't get. Yeah, right. You know, he did point. He did say like risk. Every risk has higher the risk, higher the reward, and all that crap. He continued with that. You can you can watch the interview. You can say that. I'm sure that people before this tragedy, probably found that man charming and found some stock to what he said here, right?
He's a
And
very smart person. That's like
he
he's
is
very accomplished background.
yeah, absolutely. But that we know that means nothing in terms of someone can have. I don't want to say the name, but a certain politician was a neurosurgeon, and I had a lot of respect for neurosurgeons until this person was a politician. Your background does give you a lot of credibility in that field, perhaps,
hmm
but that doesn't necessarily mean that it translates to other fields. He does have aerospace engineering background. He's accomplished many things in his life that still he could be a great innovator above surface, he could be designing the greatest robots and mech that we can ever see, but that still does not mean he built up a great submersible.
Yeah,
And I don't know. I'm not sold.
yeah. Like I think he's kind of. I see a lot of ties between him and someone like Elon actually,
Yeah.
because they're both like very outspoken and they'll say stuff like what you just said before, like, oh, safety is just pure waste. They'll say these really inflammatory but also inspiring um, things.
Yeah. Yeah, you could depending on the lens you're looking at, right?
Yeah, and they're also very accomplished. Like Elon is very accomplished. This guy is very
Hmm.
accomplished. I think he's also like a pilot or something,
Yeah. Yes.
and
Yes.
well
Uh.
educated.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. Would you ever? I didn't ask you. Would you have gone in?
Hell no. Hell no. I just first of all, I'm not a big risk taker in terms of like I wouldn't skydive or anything. My my the things that I'm risk averse on is really things I truly don't understand. Skydiving is something I just don't understand, and it's something that if someone taught me, I would be more comfortable about it. And listen, I'm not gonna say like I understand 100% of what I read, but given my background, I understood a lot more than probably the passengers that got on board.
Hmm.
There were red flags from the the website of the Titan of OceanGate. There were things that just didn't make any sense from the
Oh.
get go. As soon as I started just digging just the surface level, and by the way, all this research that we've talked about, all these things, we're trying to unpack things that we found in a 2 hour podcast here. We're giving you guys really the surface level things, really the summary of the summary. There's so much more information and things that we just not only is out there, but they're still not dug up. There are things that they're
Hmm.
still to be uncovered. And just from what I've seen and what I've read and the interview that he did, really this interview should be enough for someone to get a good assessment on the culture behind OceanGate and this experimental vessel. It just something that's experimental is the right word. Now, experimental by itself doesn't mean it's bad, right?
Hmm.
But it should go through testing from an independent group. Now, the independent group can go through the testing, cite the standard code, and say this this is not right, and based on those specific notes, you can make cases of, okay, this standard is a little stifling, this standard is it needs updating. But I don't see any of that. I just see this honestly egotistical CEO just saying, just blasting a safety code that he probably failed against internally, and instead of actually addressing the safety codes themselves, challenge the codes and saying, look, we need updates on this. Instead of doing that, he just completely ignored it. He found a way to circumnavigate the safety codes
Hmm.
and still do the dive for a profit. For a profit.
Yeah.
And that just does not sound right to me. That just does not sound right to me. That's not like, if you ask me a question about, I don't know, if I looked at the vehicle that James Cameron used, that you barely can sit. You can look up I think there's like pictures of it. He's stuck in there because they had to make the vessel that cramped to just meet the safety standards, right? There's a reason why they're uncomfortable. There's a reason why they're small. There's a reason why they're shaped a certain way. There's a reason why they're rated for a certain PSI. By the way, the Titan, by their own accord, by their own specifications, is not meant to last extended amount of time underwater.
Uh huh.
So it's not even it's not even a race against oxygen or air. It's a race against the vessel that you're in.
Hmm.
It's ridiculous. It I don't know. I'm again. I might be out of my depths here. No pun intended. It's I could be saying wrong things, but that's just my take from what I read.
Wow. I see they have an upcoming expedition for 2024.
Yeah, let's go.
Okay.
I mean, I'm sure if they use Titan, they have to like find it. It's gonna be interesting to see like what the future sort of holds. And listeners, if we're gonna do any update, I'm sure there will be some update episodes on this, John.
Yeah.
It's there's just so much coming out every day. The memes have been kind of great. I don't know if you've really looked at any of them.
Oh, please share.
I mean, there's some of the funny ones. Titanic claims lives after 100 years. Stuff like that. The funniest one I saw was like the theme of like Walmart version submersible. Like you buy Walmart items and then you make a submersible that goes down 4,000 meters, um, which is probably not that far from the truth. I think
Oh,
I think Logitech probably got the brunt of. I know their stock kind of went down,
oh my
and
gosh.
I don't think they deserve that. Let me see how hard it went down.
That's hilarious.
I know, right? So 5 day they went down 4%.
Oh
That's not
wow.
too much, but still.
That's substantial.
That is crazy. Yeah, that's just a 5 day since I guess the sub was missing. But yeah, that's all I really have, man.
Man, dude, this is ridiculous.
Yeah, this is ridiculous. I do, if anything, I want to end on the 5 passengers that are on board. Just I know I just blasted Stockton Rush. Listen, I hope they're all alive. I hope we find them and we have a rescue effort that turns them all alive. I do think Stockton Rush. I want him to be found alive partially also because I want him to answer for a lot of these things. Listen, at the end of the day, I don't want to be a naysayer of innovation, right? But I can't speak more about safety standards. They exist for a reason, man.
Yeah.
Again, if you want to challenge the standards themselves, there are ways to do that. I'm sure there are petitions to do that instead of just completely ignoring them by going on international waters. You know, if it's an unmanned vehicle, have fun. Go ahead, put it down. And it, if it collapses, if it implodes, if you lose comms, if something goes wrong, yeah, you just lost an expensive piece of machine, but at least no lives were lost.
Hmm.
These are 5 passenger, and yeah, the CEO knows this vehicle inside and out. Maybe the search experts also know that, but the businessman, his son, even the British billionaire Hamish Harding, I just doubt they knew exactly what they were getting into. And even if they did, I don't think they could fathom just how dangerous it could be.
He'll
They were
definitely want a refund.
yeah, if they come, yeah, I think they deserve more than their refund if they come up or when they come up. And I think there's going to be more information that will come out about probably the marketing. Maybe there was some misleading information that were being that shared with the potential passengers of this trip. I'm really interested to know what information they were provided with. I'm interested to know how they came on the specifications of the vehicle, how they determined 4,000 meters was their depth. If they pressure tested the vessel itself. There are just so many questions. And I'm not even again I don't know. I'm not an expert. These are just these are basic questions that come
Hmm.
up, and yeah, that I'm sure other experts have plenty more questions.
Yeah. Same as you. I hope all the passengers get out of this safe and sound, and Something tells me if Stockton Rush does make it out of this, he might have a change of heart about safety as well.
You think so? You think so? I don't know. I don't know. I mean, listen, I didn't know we were gonna get an extra episode of Black Mirror and how realistic it would be. Um, that's sort of a
dude,
tease for the next episode, I
dude,
think,
there's a
right,
little
John?
movie. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
dude.
it does feel like a movie. Yes, it might have a sad ending, and I hope it doesn't. You know, like we kind of mentioned, the experts that were more optimistic, a lot of sort of rescue experts, a lot of marine experts or deep diving experts really are not optimistic anymore. But I'm holding out hope. We're holding out hope.
Yep.
Yeah, that's
Thoughts and
all. I
prayers.
thoughts and prayers. You know, that's all we have. Any last thoughts?
Nope.
Well, there you go. Thanks for listening, everyone. This was an episode about the submersible that was going to the Titanic.